Good evening to everybody. And I'm going to talk about healthy finance for medical professionals. And I think it's very uh, timely as well as very appropriate topic because far as by experience, we know the level of financial literacy of medical professionals. So I think it's a good time. But because I have learned about this personal financial management and financial management as a part of my life coaching training program. But this is the first time I think I'm doing this type of lectures in front of the finance experts. I don't know. It is something strange. Uh, so what I'm going to talk about background of personal financial management and definitions, and also some basic principles and their applications. Uh, in background, financial management is a very frequent occurrence in an individual. It's common to everyone, and we always deal with our financial issues daily. However, we hardly learn about financial management and its dynamics in our undergraduate as well as school curriculum. Therefore, most medical professionals have poor financial literacy. I don't think only the medical professionals, but all people in the country have little less financial literacy, except few. Though people have much more money today than generation ago, like our parents and grandparents, the amount of knowledge of how to manage that money hasn't been updated. Taking charge of planning and managing our finances and putting it into practice is very important for every individual. It is not only for doctors, but everyone. And this financial literacy and personal financial management and a developed world has correctly understood the value of of this personal financial management. That's why many developed countries are trying to inculcate this financial literacy and personal financial management into their undergraduate curriculum. So they are trying to they are empower with their young generations with financial literacy and personal financial management before they become financially independent. So it is very important. And then what is a financial health? The financial health is a term used to describe the state of one's personal financial situation, which has many dimensions, which include amount of savings, levels of investment, amount is spent on retirement plan, amount you are spending on fixed and non-fixed expenses. So why it is important to have good financial health or the healthy finance? So as you see, is a better financial health is equal to the individual well-being. If you are stable with your finance, that means you are less stressful and hassle-free. So your risk of developing non-communicable disease like diabetic hypertension is very less, because you know stress is a major compounding factor cause which cause in uh, non-communicable disease. And also, it causes hassle-free retirement, what we call something called early retirement. So this is not something that like work in retirement. I'm talking about uh, financial or the financial retirement. So if you are financially stable by 50 years of age, you can go for the financial retirement at 50 years of age. You can continue with your working, but you are financially retired. So that is something very good. And also, there is no risk of sudden collapse of an individual as well as family. If you are financially stable, that means even you are collapsed by tomorrow, there's no problem day after tomorrow. So your family is stable, you are stable. So it's very important to have a good financial health as far as uh, any person is concerned. Then we will talk about what is a situation in the Sri Lankan medical professionals. So you all know, we traditionally spend more money due to intolerable social standards and expectations. This is mainly because our vehicles, our houses are not decided by ourselves or our requirements or our needs. It is basically, it's mainly decided by the society or the people surrounding us. Whether it is under accepted or not, it is a true situation. So it is, we are going for a higher standards and higher expectations. Unfortunately, salary is mostly coming through the allowances with minimal basic salary. And therefore, you have an unexpected low retirement salary. So it is something sad. This is uh, I am going to show you the salary compositions of a grade 1 medical officer. And you can see here there is a 26% only coming through the basic salary. And this majority, so about 60% coming from the non-pensionable allowances, and also another 13%, roughly 13% pensionable allowances. What will happen when you are retired? The part of this pensionable basic salary and pensionable allowances will be your retirement salary. So it is very small. This is if you work up to 60 or 63 years. But if you go disabled or something happen early, it will be further low. What's about our second income? It is in general and very popular. It is private practice. But unfortunately, it is also highly uncertain and unstable and dependent type of second income. That is mainly a self-employment. I would say it is self-employment. That is, it is only a very independent type of second income. I would say it is worse than carpentry because carpenter can teach their children to continue with carpentry, but doctors can't. So it is very, very uncertain situation. What are the other impacts? Lack of trust on investment plans and insurance schemes. In general, traditionally, we don't have trust on investment plans as well as insurance scheme. Maybe due to traumatic experiences that we have got during throughout the past. It's maybe the main reason. So, how we can achieve or ensure healthy financial life with this situation? But its understanding is the most important. Absolutely do not depend on the level of income you gain. It is planning and worked on plan are the foremost important. Remember, even billionaires can have poor financial health as well as similarly, day worker can have a excellent financial health. That's why sometimes, though the income wise is very low, our parents had better financial health than ourselves. There are rules and golden rules as far as personal financial management is concerned. What are the rules? You need individualized approach. It is not something common, but you should stick to the basic concept. There are some basic concept which has to be followed. And also set your expectation for a basic lifestyle. That is very important. And consider an extra as a rewards, which would make the life stress-free and more satisfying. Don't, don't go for a big expectations, big plans. Set for a basic lifestyle. Then your earning and income can be tally with your basic lifestyle. So that doesn't mean that you should not go for the big plans. You can go for the big plans, but take it as an extra. And also there are golden rules in personal financial management. I think we'll understand these are not new things, but it's well-known things. Spend less money than you earn. It's very important. Don't keep for days. And also, Always plan for the future. Use your money to make more money. That's in terms of investment, what we call investment. Before you design your personal finance or the personal financial management, you have to understand the expenses we have spent every day for many reasons. But there are four types of expenses. The first one is fixed expenses. What we call, those are the uncontrollable expenses because they are necessary, like house rent or the loan installment. So you don't have any control over them. So those are necessary expenses. And second one is the flexible expenses. Those are also occur regularly, and also they are necessary for day-to-day living, but you have some control over the amount. As an example, the utility bills like electricity and water, if you want, you can control to some extent. What are the third one? It's a discretionary expenses. The money for movies, trips, meals, or anything, etc. And you have control over these expenses. If you don't want to go for a trip, you can stay without going trips. So you can cut down the amount you spend. And fourth one is emergency expenses. Like you know, it's a medical and critical event expenses. So again, it is we has less control over the emergency expenses. Then you know your incomes and you know your expenses. Then you have to prepare your own budget. It is a very basic of personal financial management. I don't know how many of you have your own budget per month or per year. How to prepare the own budget? You have to allocate your income consciously and into these expenses categories. What they recommended is you have to allocate 50 to 60% of your income for fixed and flexible expenses, which I discussed. And also another 20 to 30% for the discretionary expenses. And 5 to 10% savings or emergency expenses, and another 10% for investment. So these values or the figures are set for the developed countries, European countries, because they are the more spent on discretionary expenses. That's why they have allocated 20 to 30%. But you may alter these values according to your wish. But remember, there should be all these four components in your expenses. Then you have to go for your budgeting or the good budget. What are the qualities of the good budget? As I already mentioned, expenses are less than income. It is very important. And also it should include savings. It's a long-term savings, short-term savings. In addition, there should be allowance for pocket money as well as allocations for unexpected expenses like emergencies, and also allocations for investment. It is very important. How to build your monthly budget? It is not very difficult, just simple calculations. You have to just list out the whole income and calculate the monthly total. For a medical professionals, is salary plus second income or the third income, like that. And list out all the expenses and categorize the expenses according to the ways and according to the major categories what I have already mentioned. Decide the amount can allocate for savings and investment. When you allocate amount for the discretionary and fixed and flexible expenses, you can decide the amount you can allocate for savings and investment. But why it is important to decide this amount? You have to keep separately the amount for savings and investment at the beginning of the month. It is not at the end of the month. It is very important because otherwise you will lose this investment amount involuntarily. You will spend this money to day-to-day activities. Modify your possible expenses to utilize your money efficiently. If you feel that your money is not efficiently utilized, you can modify your possible expenses and make this is a habit for each month as well as year. It's very important. So then we'll go for an investment, which is very important as far as today program is concerned. As you build your savings, you will eventually want to invest some money, uh, some of your money. So it grows over time. Always try to invest for a sustainable income rather than investing for a one-off profit. Some business or the one investments are use only one-off profit, but it is not the reasonable or it is not the sustainable income. But before everything, make sure you have to understand your investment. Do not get involved in investments you don't understand. You have to do research, study on these investment, possible investments, and their good and bad aspects. Then, how to invest? Be careful, but do not hesitate. That is very important. By my experience in Sri Lanka, many professionals are very, very hesitant to go for any investment. We spend millions and millions on our liabilities, like houses, cars, or the equipments. But if somebody asks you to invest something, you think 1,000 times, and at the end you say no. There's a legal provision to become an investor. For a government servant, as a government servant, by constitution, you have legal power or the provision to become an investor. If you need legal advice, you can have legal advice from legal officer. And study about the field, as I mentioned, and also always initiate with the family investment rather than unfamiliar, unusual. There's common investment plans are there, investment as facilities are there. So those are the familiar facilities. You have to follow these family things first rather than unfamiliar investment. Group investment is better than isolated because time you spend on this investment and your time availability and your busy time schedule with your busy time schedule, otherwise it will be difficult. So expand your investment gradually. Always start in a small scale with experience. With time, you can expand it gradually. You can go for the large scale or you can go into a massive level later on. And also master a single field first and expand it before moving to another field. Don't move to the another field without establishing your previous field adequately. Otherwise, you will the both field will be collapsed. And but multiple fields are more sustainable than single fields. What is meant by multiple fields? It is like I would say someone invested on a tourist field of tourism. So if you want to have a second field, second investment, it's better to invest on a field other than tourism, like plantation, because if the field of tourism is collapsed, the plantation would be getting profit. So you can compensate your investment just in case of unexpected uh, collapse. And not only that, do not depend on your investment in the early stages. That's very important. Sometimes it may be profitable, may not be profitable, but do not depend on your investment on the early stages. That's all about investment. And then the savings. This savings are short term or long term. And also this includes savings up to gifts or large purchases like TV or computer or something like land, anything. These savings are to cover unexpected emergencies like car repair or medical costs as well. But remember, savings is not an investment. Many professionals think say money in the savings account or the fixed deposits as an investment. It is not an investment. It doesn't consider as an investment. So it is very important to understand because keep savings account, fixed deposits are better to save your money, but not investment. And also you have to review your insurance. It is important to have enough insurance to protect your family and your income in case of death, disability, or illness. There are many insurance schemes, even the Agrahari Security scheme, and whatever it is, you have to review your insurance. You have to see there, you have to check the status, whether your fundings are being updated or not, and also read the small prints of insurance policies always. Not only that, keep good records. They are very poor with recordings. Maintain good documents. Write down everything somewhere. Leave your passwords, login details with someone trusted. It's very important. Otherwise, you get ill or you get collapsed or disabled. No one knows about password or the other details. So it is very difficult to manage later, thereafter. Set up a system and use it all the time. It's always you have to set up a system and also use a personal accounting software. There is ample personal accounting software. Apps are available even in your smartphone. You can use those. Use this newer technology. It makes your life easier. Last but not the least, your will is important. You have to update your will. A will is important. Protect where your wealth goes when you die. If you have dependents, no matter how little or how much you own, make sure your will is up to date. You have to up to date your will. If you are unsure about any legal issues, talk to a lawyer. Always keep a personal lawyer or the family lawyer who knows about your legal aspects. In conclusion, healthy finance means a healthy life. It is always important. Even billionaires are in danger of financial collapse if their financial management is poor. Understand your finance to make the life easier, and always try for an investment which is safer and reliable. Don't keep too much hopes on your private practice income, which is highly unstable. So dear friends and colleagues, so these are some of references, and thank you very much, and we'll discuss further in our discussion time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vijayasiri. Hello. Dinesh, you can start your presentation now.
As a host.
Yeah, we will transfer the host to you.
Okay, sir. Kanchana?
Yes, Dinesh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it transferred? Once it's transferred, we can.
Yes, it's transferred.
Excuse me. May I know to whom should I transfer?
Kanchana.
Kanchana. Okay.
Kanchana.
Okay, it's done.
If I may start, good evening to everybody. My name is Ian Ferdinand. I'm CEO of CBank. Today with us is Kanchana, who will be doing the presentation, and Kumudu, our head of marketing, along with, of course, Dinesh, whom you all know. Firstly, of course, thank you very much for this opportunity for you to talk to us. I must congratulate Dr. Vikram Nayak. I think it's one of the best presentations I've heard in a while on personal investment planning. It's very clear, Doctor. And I think all your members and all are privileged to have that presentation. What we would try to do today is, I think you've said a lot, and Kanchana would like to take you through one of these investment options, what we offer in the field of the unit trusts. You spoke about multiple fields. We are in one area, we do diversify our investments, and Kanchana will talk about that. So I will allow her to begin. And once we are done with, please feel free to ask us any questions or make any comments. We would definitely appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good evening to you, everybody. Give me a second, I will share my screen. Okay. How to invest your money effectively. Actually, our discussion is based on that. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah, very audible.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, I will just give a brief introduction of our company, SeaBank Asset Management Limited. By its name, it's a leading Sri Lankan asset management company with 30 years of experience in managing funds. Our main shareholder is Bank of Ceylon with 44% of holding, followed by SLIC, Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation with 26% of interest, and UTI, Unit Trust of India. UTI is a well-established, one of the largest fund management company in India, and Carson's Cumberbatch Limited with 12.5% of interest. So with the contribution of these four shareholders, SeaBank Asset Management Company incorporated in 1991, and SeaBank is licensed and regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka in order to manage funds. Okay. Now we will move into the investment opportunities available in the market. So when we look at the investment opportunities available in the market, I know you all are aware of the common investment opportunities available in the market, like treasury bills and bonds, savings accounts, fixed deposits, debentures, gold, property, stocks. Listed stocks. Listed stocks are traded at Colombo Stock Exchange, and commercial papers, and unit trust investments. Actually, this is not a new concept. As I mentioned, even SeaBank is having 30 years of experience in managing unit trust funds. But the awareness is very low among the public. Okay, what is unit trust funds? What is unit trust investment? Let me briefly explain you about the unit trust concepts. Okay, here you can see some investors here, many investors here. Then they will invest their money in unit trust fund. So I'm just explaining you the concept of unit trust here. There are many investors and they will invest their money in unit trust fund, and this unit trust fund is held by a trustee. In the case of SeaBank unit trust funds, our trustee is NSB, National Savings Bank. So NSB acts as the trustee for our unit trust fund. Okay, then the monies of this fund are again invested in different types of investment opportunities in the market, like treasury bills, commercial papers, deposits, and shares, and various types of investment instruments. Actually, rather investing individual money separately, we invest in large scale with a view to get a higher return. the whole returns we get from these investment instruments, again, will be given back to investors. That is the whole concept of the CBank investments. Anyway, in order to select good investment opportunities, arranging those investments, give investment instructions. As I told you, there's a trustee, this unit trust fund is held by a trustee. So in order to give investment instructions to the trustee, collect the returns from the instruments, from the investments, and recording all transactions and giving back the returns to the investors should be done by a fund manager. So the role of fund manager comes here. You can see the role of fund manager here. So this role is done by CBank Asset Management Limited. And I want to mention this one even. Other than managing funds, the fund manager does not have any involvement of the monies of these unit trust funds. All operational activities of managing the funds are monitored by a trustee. As I told you, our trustee is NSB, so National Savings Bank acts as our trustee. So trustee is monitoring all these transactions. Not only that, again, everything is again regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka in order to protect the investors' monies. I think you got a clear understanding about this unit trust whole concept. And we will move into the selecting the best investment opportunities in the market. How do we select the best investment opportunity in the market? And what are the factors we should consider in selecting the best investment opportunity in the market? Okay, whenever there is an investment opportunity, the first thing comes to our mind is what sort of a return we can get from that instrument. That is the main point comes to our mind. Okay, it can be a low return, it can be a moderate or a high return. Then the second factor is the period of investment, whether we will go for a short-term investment or a long-term investment. In the case of long-term investment, of course, you can probably expect a high return. But for a short-term, we can say you can expect a low or a medium return. Another factor you should consider is the risk tolerance. How the risk is appearing here? If you select long-term investment opportunity, you have to consider your risk is a bit high. But when you compare it with the short-term, low-risk investment, actually, you can have this low-risk tolerance. Other factor is the investment objective. What is your investment objective? That means whether you want to get just an income from that investment or a capital growth. What is liquidity requirement? Whether you can withdraw your money anytime without any extra charges or any penal rate. If you consider very familiar investment opportunity available in the market is the fixed deposit. We will assume like initially you invested your money in fixed deposit for a 1 year period. And after 3 months, we'll say like you want to withdraw your money. Then if you want to withdraw your money after 3 months, of course, they will charge a penal rate from your interest. Then the income you get from that fixed deposit is a bit low. It's not what you expected by the time of investing. So if I summarize these factors, the main factors again that you should consider in selecting a best investment opportunity is if you consider short-term investment opportunity, of course, you can expect a low or a moderate risk, as well as your risk is also low. But for a long-term investment opportunity, of course, you can expect a high return, as well as you have to get this high risk tolerance even compared to the short-term investment opportunity. Okay. As I explained to you earlier, you should have a better understanding of the return that you get before selecting an investment instrument. Okay, what do you mean by this return? In fact, the return has to be a positive return. Okay, what do you mean by a positive return? Let me explain this. Here you can see a graph here. This shows the impact of inflation. What is inflation? It's a common word in our day-to-day life, inflation. Inflation is the increase in prices of goods. When we look at our day-to-day expenses, day by day, our living costs, our living expenses are gradually moving up due to increase in prices of goods. Here you can see this blue color line that shows the cost of living. In this graph, I have taken 5-year period from 2016 to 2020. So during this period, you can see the cost of living. Our cost of living has escalated throughout this period when you look at 2016 to 2020 5-year period. On the other hand, when the prices increase over the period of time, our value of rupees, our value of our monies is gradually declining, and this is shown by this red color line. This is the time value of money. So here you can see, due to this inflation, due to the increase in prices of goods, our cost of living is gradually increasing, and the value of our money gradually declining. Okay, in this kind of a scenario, if we invest our money in savings account, what's the impact? The savings account return here is shown by this green color line. You can see the savings account return line, but this is below the cost of living line. That means when you invest your money in savings account, your return is actually below the cost of living even. Your return is, if you speak, in other words, you can get a negative return by investing your money in savings account. Okay, when you look at the last month inflation, January 2021 inflation, published by the Census and Statistics Department, it's recorded as 5.2%. Colombo Consumer Price Index that measures the increase in prices of goods. It's 5.2%. And when you look at the normal savings rate, currently it's 3%. So cost of living is, inflation is 5.2% and the savings return is 3%. There you can clearly see, then you will end up with getting negative return of 2.2%. So you must always try to invest your money with a positive return investment opportunity. You should not invest in a negative return investment opportunity. So what are the alternatives? We will look at those now. Okay. When you select the best investment, so we will see some short-term and the long-term investment opportunities here. And return-wise here, I have categorized this low or moderate return and high return. Period-wise even, short-term and long-term. When you look at the short-term investment opportunities, they are return, as I mentioned, you can expect a low return or a moderate return. And when you look at short-term investment opportunities available in the market, as you can see on the screen, you can see treasury bills, savings accounts, fixed deposit, commercial papers. Likewise, you can see various types of investment opportunities available in the market. So apart from these instruments, in addition to these instruments, rather selecting each and every instrument, CBank has introduced an income fund for these short-term investment opportunities. The name of this fund is CBank High Yield Fund. This covers actually most of these investment opportunities available in the market, and we will discuss that thing later. Compared to the short-term investment opportunities, we have introduced a growth fund. Name is CBank Century Growth Fund. That is, the main objective is that for the long-term investment opportunities with high risk, with the objective of giving a high risk. when you look at the other long-term investment opportunities in the market, you can see treasury bonds, debentures, property, listed stocks. Those are traded at Colombo Stock Exchange. So in order to cover all these, most of this type of instruments, we have, as I mentioned we have introduced this growth fund named CBank Century Growth Fund. If we look at these two funds again, and we will look at these two funds again. When you look at this high yield fund, the expected return, you can expect a moderate return from this high yield fund compared to the normal market interest rate. And the period is also short term. And due to the short term, of course, you can expect a low return. And the main investment objective is to give you an income. Okay. The monies of this fund are invested in treasury bills, FDs, corporate debt securities, likewise various type of short-term investment opportunities. So in compared to this high yield fund, as I mentioned we have launched the growth fund even. In the case of growth fund, when you look at their characteristics, you can see we can expect a high return by investing your long-term savings, long-term investments. And since due to this long-term the growth fund, we can expect a high return compared to this high yield fund. And the objective of this fund is to capital growth, grow your capital. That means grow your initial investment. And when you look at the investment in these funds, the monies of these funds are invested in equity securities. That means listed securities at Colombo Stock Exchange. That means most of the money of these funds are invested in equity securities. That's why we have launched this fund for the long-term investment opportunities. But this, as I explained to you earlier, this high yield fund, income fund, of course, we do not invest any money in listed shares. Always we concentrate on short-term investment opportunities with low-risk investment opportunities. Okay, if we summarize these two funds, launched by CBank Asset Management Limited for short-term purpose, we have introduced the income fund called CBank High Yield Fund. And for long-term investment opportunities, we have created the capital growth fund named CBank Century Growth Fund. Okay, now we will look at the returns of CBank High Yield Fund. Actually, CBank High Yield Fund was launched in November 2017. So I have taken the period from Jan 2018 to June 2021. Here you can see the return of high yield fund in this red color line. So, and I have compared the return of this high yield fund against the savings account. Here you can see the savings account returns, and the green color line shows the treasury bill return. And this bank deposit returns will be shown by this blue color line, AWDR. And as I mentioned you, this high yield fund return is given by this red color line. Okay, and if we quickly look at the growth fund returns, our growth fund was launched in January 1997. And this blue color, here I have taken the period from Jan 1997 to June 2021. And this blue color line shows the return of CBank Century Growth Fund against the All Share Price Index. Okay, what is All Share Price Index? All Share Price Index is the index published by the Colombo Stock Exchange after measuring the price movement of all listed shares at Colombo Stock Exchange. When you look at the growth fund return, this I have given you the average return per year, annual effective rate. So there you can see 11.59%, whereas All Share Price Index return is, average return is 10.93%. Okay. With that, okay, then we will look at what are the benefits of investing in CBank fund. There should be some benefits for the investors to come and invest in our C-Bank funds. Managers' expertise. That means minimize your involvement. Since there are well-experienced, qualified, and professional people at C-Bank to manage your money, you don't want to waste your time by collecting information to select best investment opportunities for your savings. And diversification. Minimize your risk. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's the concept behind this. Okay, when we invest your money in various investment instruments, mainly we focus on to get a maximum return for your monies by diversifying the risk as much as we can across the different types of investment opportunities, rather selecting only one or two investment opportunities. Third factor, easy access to the equity and money market. Just by investing in C-Bank funds, you can easily access to many types of investment instruments in money and equity markets like treasury bills, bonds, debentures, corporate papers, and listed shares at CSE. And the liquidity. You can withdraw your money anytime. In the case of your money invested in C-Bank funds, you can withdraw your monies at any time without a penal rate or any extra charges. But it is not a case for some investment opportunities, some investment instruments like FDs, as we discussed earlier. For example, we say when you come to invest your money in C-Bank, initially you thought of investing for a 1 year period. And after 3 months, we'll say you want to withdraw your money. So by that time, you can just inform the fund manager, you can withdraw your money without any extra charges. So that is the other benefits that you can get from this investing in C-Bank funds. Okay. Ability to access high value investments with small investments. What do you mean by this? Actually, our minimum investment amount in C-Bank fund is 1,000 rupees. So just by investing 1,000 rupees in C-Bank fund, you can access to high value investments in money and equity markets. There are some companies who issue some corporate papers with large values like a couple of millions by offering some attractive rates compared to normal market interest rates. Since individually, we can't just go and invest in these papers, but C-Bank can invest your monies in these papers in large scale in order to obtain an attractive return. Even in share market, you can access to large companies through C-Bank funds. You can have the advantage of getting the high dividends paid by these companies. Ability to choose a fund to suit your risk return profile. This is very important. Actually, you can come and discuss and select a suitable fund based on your risk return preference, based on your objective, based on your requirement. You can come and discuss with C-Bank fund managers and you can select a best best fund for your requirements. The risk-taking ability. The risk-taking ability depends on person to person. Some are willing to take a high risk, but some, of course, some people do not want to take a risk. So you can discuss and select a fund based on your objective and requirement. Here, I just want to mention you, if you can't invest your monies in one fund, you can actually select different funds. By further diversifying your risk, as I told you, rather investing all your eggs in one basket. Other fact is convenient switching among asset classes. So you can easily switch your money from one fund to the another fund, from income to the equity, or the other way around, from equity to income. And the transferable. There, of course, we say you can transfer your investment instruments to somebody else even, to another person even. How do you invest in C-Bank Unit Trust Fund? First of all, based on your requirement, based on your investment objective, and based on your risk return preferences, you should select a very suitable fund for your investments. And the other procedures are also same like for the other investments. Like you have to, you can do a investment by way of a check, or by doing a fund transfer, or just deposit your money in CBank fund. And after that, you have to complete your application and forward that application along with the copy of your NIC and the copy of your fund transfer slips or a cash deposit slip. And in turn, you will be given a transaction receipt for your investment. Then how do you withdraw your money from CBank funds? If you want to withdraw your money anytime, so you can inform the fund manager and you have to return the transaction receipt. There, of course, on the back side of the transaction receipt, you have to mention whether you want to redeem the entire investment or the part of your investment. And you have to return this transaction receipt with your endorsement to the fund manager. And the fund manager will credit the money to your registered bank account. And if you want to get some more details about CBank funds and the procedure of investing, so any information, you can contact Mr. T.M. Dinesh. He is our regional manager in Kandy. Actually, you can contact him anytime in order to get some more information. So with that, I will wind up this presentation, and thank you very much, and really appreciating your participation. Thank you. So now if you have any doubts or if you have any questions, you can just ask those questions.
Thank you very much, Kanchana. And if you could exit the screen sharing, we'll be able to see the all panels.
Yes.
Yeah. In the chat box, someone has mentioned, could you please give the contact details again? So,
Kanchana, could you just share that slide?
Yes.
Is it possible?
Yes.
No, we can't see the slide. Right. Thanks.
We can actually send this presentation even to you later if anybody wants this one.
We have been recording this the session now, Dr. Vijayasiri?
Yes.
yeah, we have recorded and we will be published.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah,
Sir.
I already recorded and it will be in the YouTube, so anyone can refer the video anytime. So if there's any questions, you all can ask now, and since we have the panel, you can have the live discussion now.
You want me to close the presentation now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be better. No?
Thanks.
And thank you very much, Kanchana. Anyway, it's very interesting and very informative presentation. And we got to know everything about the investment opportunities. And what I could I don't know whether you could explain more about this. What is the short-term and long-term opportunities? I think it's, and duration. And what is the time duration? You consider it as a short-term or the long-term investment?
Ian, do you want to answer for that question?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. In general, what we would, of course, this is in a very general term. You are looking at, when you look at the short term, you're looking at 1 year and less than that. That is what generally people would look at. And the long term would be generally more than a 5-year period. That's how we would look at it. And you would have the medium term, which is in between that. But there again, what we tell most investors, and that's why we appreciate some discussions like this, because different investors, like Kanchana would have told you, have different risk return profiles, basing on your age, in your life cycle, depending on your profession, like very much like what you said. So the length of time of that investment objective may be slightly more than even this period. For instance, let me give you an example. Parents generally begin saving for their children from the time they are born, mainly looking at higher education. I think that is one of the key areas that parents look at it. Now, that is a much longer period, but it's like what you rightly said. You have that investment objective and then you plan towards investing. Now, a couple of years, maybe about 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, we didn't have fixed deposits that were long as 5 years. Fixed deposits were just 1 or 2 years. And people were not used even to this concept of going in on the long term. But now, there are many more investments. For instance, there are treasury bonds that are 30 years. So people have the option. There are more instruments. So it could be even longer than this 5-year period that we're looking at. Like even what you said, okay, you're planning for a life event. It could be for savings, maybe for your retirement. It could be educational purposes. So as much as in general, we say that, okay, it could be 1 year for the short term and then 5 years or more for the long term. We generally would look at the investor's requirement before even recommending some type of investment instrument or plan for them. I hope that addressed your...
I think it is very clear. And just another, yeah. And yeah, another question is there in the chat box. How do you decide on the long-term reliability of a company?
If we are talking about a security that is, there are two ways that we can look at it. One is if you're looking at a company, when you say company, whether it's the shares of the company in the Colombo Stock Exchange, or there are the other way of looking at the companies, some companies issue securities, like things like commercial paper in the short term, or things like debentures for the long term. Now, that type of, when you're looking at a company, if you're looking at shares in the stock market, we would research and evaluate one key factor is the long-term sustenance of that business. Now, say, for instance, today, if let me take an example of, say, a company called Bogla Graphite, which is listed in the stock exchange. Now, Bogla Graphite's main business is to mine graphite from the mines, and also they add value. They convert it into graphene and that type of thing. Now, for instance, a company like that, if they say that there are no more mines in Sri Lanka, or there's no more graphite for them to mine, then either the company has to evolve or the company will not be able to sustain its business. So the first thing is we will look at that as sustaining, whether we can put money in this company. Of course, secondly, we look at things like their profitability, what type of management they have, what type of competition they have in the market. Say, for instance, there could be a telecom company like Dialog, and if for some reason or the other, there's a new entrant, or maybe SLT has such a dominant position in the market that they are grabbing most of the market share, then we will relook at that company, even if we have investments in that company. So as fund managers, if you're looking at an equity fund where we invest, we continuously keep looking at it. One is for new opportunities to invest in new companies or new maybe companies that are doing well. On the other hand, to maybe exit companies that are not doing so well or their profitability. So it's a matter of looking at the management, it's looking at the profitability, the business environment, the competition in the market, and the sustenance of that business, basically.
And I also want to add a point to that, because just by investing in a company, we don't just forget about that investment. After investing in a company, we do some research, and continuously we just follow the performance of that company, especially quarterly, half yearly, annually. We just look at their performance, and we just look at their management, their strategies. So everything, we will be monitoring everything while we are investing in those companies. So as Mr. Ian explained you, we'll say if they are not performing but as we expected, then of course quickly we divest that investment.
So I have two questions. One is it how do you get the returns? Is it monthly or after maturity? And the other question is, if anyone wants to top up his investment, so is there a provision in your system?
Yes. The second question is, you can top up. There is no problem at all. Because what the funds that we have are called open-ended unit trust funds. You can enter the fund at any time and you can exit the fund at any time. So there's no problem at any time. The flexibility is there for you to invest or to divest. The first question was more on how you would get your returns. Now, different funds are structured differently. All of these funds have a dividend policy. So some funds would maybe give dividends on a half-yearly basis. Some could give dividends annually. And some funds don't give dividends at all, because the return that you get is the growth of the value of your unit or the investment that you made. For example, all of our funds are valued on a daily basis. That means you know the value of your investment on a daily basis. So if we call it units when you invest money in a fund, in exchange for the money, we give you a number of units based on that day's price of the fund. So for example, you come today and make an investment, say at 10 rupees per unit. The price is published in the newspapers and on our websites. So once you buy this at 10 rupees, maybe after 6 months, the price of this would have gone to maybe 11 rupees. So you know the value of your units. You can multiply the number of units by the price, and you'll know the rupee value of the investment. So if it was 100 units into 10, it will be 1,000 rupees. And if it's 100 into 11, it will be 1,100. So you know the value of it and the return. So you can calculate your return at any point in time by looking at the two prices for that period.
Okay, thank you.
There's another question from chat box, sir. Can you compare FD investment with CBank funds in percentage of profit?
We can, in a sense, we will have to look at a fixed period. Say, for instance, if we are drawing a comparison, we can take, say, a fixed deposit that the yield that a fixed deposit gives, say, on the 1st of January, and you will know at the end of the period that you will get a fixed amount. Now, in the case of unit trusts, there is one disadvantage which the regulator, the SEC, doesn't permit us to publish a fixed rate. What we can do is we give the investors the historical rate, and that is the only thing that we can publish. But when it's come to measuring it, you can take the fixed deposit rate today and say that is what you will get for a fixed period. At the same time, you can take the unit price of today, and at the end of the year, you can take the unit price, and you can, for that period, calculate the return and then see whether the unit trust funds are doing better or performing better than the fixed deposits. Now, I think Kanchana showed you, one of the slides she showed you was the returns for that certain period. If you look at the presentation later, you will notice that through a certain period from 2017 to 21, you would see the fixed deposits, the line, as well as the high yield fund line. And you would see that there is a fairly, shall I say, an appreciation of a slightly higher yield than the fixed deposit.
Okay, I think I got the answer. And one more thing, Mr. Inda, I just want to ask for behalf of everybody. I mean, when we are going for an investment, we always, traditionally, we worried about this the reliability of investment companies. But we have experienced in the past, there are so many companies which collapse all of a sudden, and then the investors get in the problem with their funds and their investments. What level of reliability that we can get with CBank funds or whatever the CBank trust funds in terms of legal reassurance, with coordinate with Central Bank of Sri Lanka or rules and regulations of the country. What is the trust you can give to the audience about the safety of the investment that we are going to do with your trust?
I think this is one of the most valid questions, and this is something that I, as an investment manager, would always tell my client. I'll tell them, first look at the risk, don't even look at the return, because that is the crux of the matter. Can you tolerate that risk? I think that is a key question that we need to ask. Now, having said that, I also have to make the statement that nothing is risk-free. That is how it's inherent in any investment. What we as fund managers try to do is try to reduce that risk while giving you a reasonable return, give the clients a reasonable return. Now, we can talk all about our shareholders, that they are great companies, that they're reliable, they are government institutions. We can tell all of that. But when it comes to the ultimate investment, it is we take a call and make investments in different companies. And it obviously will depend on what we have generated. So from our point of view, what we can give you is our track record for the last 30 years and say, okay, this is the type of returns we've given under these risks. Like take a stock market, it's a fairly high risk investment. But this is the type of returns that we have generated. If it comes to a high yield fund, we will also tell you that there are certain risky elements, because in a high yield fund, to generate this extra income for the client, we have to invest in papers that are issued by companies. We are not only going into maybe treasury bills and maybe good safe bank deposits, because if we went only into that, you will not be able to generate this return. But our aim and our job, our role in this is to manage that risk. So one is we are not allowed to permit, like I told you about the returns, to give you about the returns. But from the risk side, I would really go with part of one of your slides, which said, look at the risk, go to things that you know. And what I would add to that is, to everybody here, that when you make an investment, don't feel bad to ask tough questions from wherever you're going to invest. It's not only about the companies. Companies can be there, they look good, and then maybe 2 years down the road, that's what we saw with all the finance company debacles. So what I would basically advise is, we can show you our track record, but to be very honest, we cannot say 100% that nothing is going to go wrong. But I would definitely encourage that people ask all the tough questions. Don't feel bad about it, because that is the investor's right. They should ask all the tough questions. We see central bank putting a lot of notices saying that is this scam, this pyramid scheme, and all of that. So you need to be aware, even with your busy schedules as doctors, when you're putting your money, remember it's hard-earned money. It's not somebody has given it to you free. So ask all the tough questions before you put your money.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ian. I think that's very important, because as a doctors and people in the Sri Lanka, we don't read about this. We read these small prints. Always we put some signatures in front of officers, but we don't know for what we are signing. So it's very important to read about the small prints and ask each and everything before investing. Otherwise, when the things goes wrong, only we realize that we have signed to something else. And okay.
No, appropriately, like what you said, it's the health you're looking after. Like a doctor, you would advise us to eat proper food, and you'll tell us to exercise and have enough sleep. And in the same manner, I think that we have to keep looking at to see whether our money is there. You don't put the money and then forget about it and look at it next year. That's another thing that investors should do. Always keep track of what your money is, what's happening to your money.
Yeah. There's another questions in the chat box. Dr. Warisinghe, is there anything to tell?
No, Vijay, you can proceed.
In Sri Lanka, and this is a question in your chat box. In Sri Lanka, we have bad experience with share market deal with broker company for last 5 years. How can you give an assurance in investing in your way? I think that you already explained.
But I can possibly add on something. Again, unit trusts were brought in also as an investment instrument for people who didn't want to spend time with the stockbroker. Because even with the stockbroker, you have to be always watching that. And sometimes stockbrokers don't have time enough for that. It's now in the case of a unit trust, like what Kanchana showed in that diagram, a lot of people invest, people who have a common investment objective will pool their funds together, and that is managed as a common investment objective. So it's really not I wouldn't say the fault of the broker, neither the fault of the regulator. But I think we ourselves as investors, we need to also be cautious, because when we see fancy returns somewhere, we run to that quickly. That is human nature. But always they say, higher the risk, higher the return is that type of thing. You must always keep that in mind. So if they say that if something it looks too good to be true, it generally isn't true. That's what people say. So you need to be careful.
Yeah, that's very clear. Are there any questions?
I have a question. In Sri Lankan scenario, now the rupee value is rapidly depreciating. Inflation is on the rise. So when you invest in that kind of schemes, what will happen to the end results rather than investing on, properties and all kind of things? They usually tend to appreciate. So what is your comment on this?
I would look like what you say at alternate investments. One thing again that we advise is don't put your money everywhere. Even with us, don't put all your money. What we would suggest is, what Dr. Vikramanayaka said, you need to have a mix of investments or mixed fields, as he said it. So you are diversified. At the same time, you need money for your day-to-day stuff. So you'll have your savings account, you'll have your fixed deposit, you'll have a little bit in the share market. You possibly might buy a property so that you balance it off. One is you can try to beat inflation, because otherwise you're losing the real value of your money. And you also separate, at least you diversify the risk. Now, I would, for instance, if I had money today, I would definitely, like what you said, I would also go and invest in some property, because properties generally has been, there's limited land mass in this country. So end of the day, the prices have to appreciate depending, of course, on where you buy the property and what type of property. But I would definitely choose property as one of my assets. At the same time, I might look at something like gold, because even gold commodities also have appreciated. So those are two other aspects in addition to maybe going into the stock market or going into the bank fixed deposits or unit trusts. Those are two other asset classes that I would invest in. And if I had the opportunity, of course, the issue with some of these assets are they're very pricey. So if you want to go and buy, say, maybe an acre of land in a good, fairly recent, it takes fair amount of capital. So it also boils down to how much of capital that you will also have to dispose of.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Ian.
Yeah, I think it's very important, guys. I mean, when we are looking for investment and second income and these investment opportunities, if we can go for a small scale, trial version, like, so you can try and some new opportunities. Then you can, if you are comfortable with the small scale investment, you can grow up the investment further. So I think that's what we could do.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and rather than keep, being hesitated and without
not taking the decision also. You have to take the decision, but maybe like what you say, moderate it and then experience it before you commit more to it.
Yeah. Okay. I think as there is no other questions, and shall we wind up the session? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I think I must say thank you to you all. One is to you for your presentation, Dr. Vikramanayaka. That was very, very interesting. And I think for a layman, it's ideal. It's ideal so that people will get that message across. And also, I would suggest that just to all of you all that feel free to contact us anytime. You don't have to do business with us, but you can, if you want any type of advice or things that we can help with, we would be very glad, because that is part of our role in this development of this market as well as unit trust. So please feel free to contact us or Dinesh or anybody that you would, you're very welcome to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ian, for your appreciation as well. And I think this financial literacy is something less touch area in Sri Lankan education as well as everywhere. So that's the main problem in Sri Lanka, because people don't know how to handle their finance. So that's why people are looking on the road when there is country is closed for 2 weeks. And also, I think it was a very truthful and important presentations as sessions. And also audience was there from senior professors to the junior doctors. I could see the audience as well as audience was from everywhere, all over the country. I could see some doctors from Veloaya, Colombo, as well as Cole, Matharan. So it was a very good audience. I think we had a very good opportunity to discuss these matters which are related to investment. Also, I should thank Mr. Ian for giving this very open answers like that, not to divert the audience to one extent. So it's very open and very comprehensive explanations for our questions. So it's something very good in the speech. And one of the main target of the DOELS is to enhance the people's human capitals. And so this is a personal development program. So it's very important.